Well, this is probably the
Um,
first interview I've done in almost real, maybe about almost 2 years.
oh wow, really?
Yeah, yeah, because
Wow, I'm honored.
yeah, my God, I've been on hiatus, learning and living, and every now and then I like to step away from everything, and just explore, like live life, travel, meet new people, go different places, just to get an experience. So when I come back into my world, I got actually knowledge and data and wisdom to spread throughout. That's always
Well,
been my thing.
let's just keep it going from there then. I mean, like I
Mhm.
just took a hiatus as well from podcasting. I just got like I don't know
Mhm.
about you, but like I got burnt out. You know what
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, for
saying?
sure,
Like I
for
felt like I
sure.
was kind of pimping myself out for a little bit. I was just doing like 8 a week, just
Mm,
kind of wasn't really practicing and studying for it. I was just doing it just to, make money, right? Just kind of
mhm,
build the
mhm,
business up a little bit. And I needed to kind of take a step back and kind of just say, hey, like what do I really want to do? And the podcast, man, it
mm.
really defines you. I would imagine you probably have something, similar, with your life and
Yeah.
music. Like, tell me about that.
Well, which is funny is like a lot of the stuff that I learned from, well, not learn, but I love listening to podcasts. I do that all day. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
But then there's a way you can burn yourself out from that too as well with listening to so many. So what I learned, even in life and what I do is like the podcast and like life. If I'm not doing it with intention, then it's not what I'm supposed to be doing, and I need a break. Meaning that if I
Hmm.
go so hard that I'm like, I'm counting money, or I'm counting, I got, all these things going at once, but I'm just getting them done and I'm going through the motions. That's when I have to step back and reset. And I'm naturally an introvert. I don't know if people know that about me. Like I have to have
Interesting.
my space. Like, and I'll go up to the mountains, you go to my cabin, or just get away from everybody just to recharge and to just slow everything down and to actually think about what are my intentions and what I want my intentions to be when I step back into the world, and how do I want to have impact. So for me, growing up with a scarcity mindset was I gotta get it, I gotta do it, I gotta have it. I don't know if the opportunity's gonna come again. So I did everything. You know what I mean? So much so that, I ran myself raggedy because I wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't drinking water. I wasn't doing, and this was when I was a young man coming up into my adulthood. And the minute that I started to really be intentional about being intentional is when I start to realize like less is more.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And I don't have to do as much if I'm that impactful or if I impact the right people. You know what I'm saying? If you're thinking about, being on the street corner, you want to get all the money you can get. And you get about a rap game, you want to sell all the records you can sell. But then as you start to see what your worth is and you start to understand, okay, I know a lot of things about life, and you start living from, a position of abundance. It's more so who I want to spend my time with that recharges me, that I can pour into them, or what do I really want to do that's going to leave my mark in this world instead of just being about a check. And when I started going about it that way, I had the time to think through things. I felt better and I was able to show up, at 100% rather than showing up at 10 or 15 because I've done 100 things before I get to you or before we have this conversation. And I felt, almost immediately that, my impact quadrupled. You know what I'm saying? My conversations were richer. My time I spent with people, I actually got a chance to know them. And I was like, you know what? This is where I want to live at. And for me, abundance and scarcity is two different things. Like when you're living from survival, like what I came up with, everything is an opportunity, even other people. You know what I'm saying? So I ain't gonna say that I was the greatest person my whole life. You know what I mean? Because I was definitely like, I'm taking care of my family. I don't know about yours, but now it's like, what can I do to add value? Right. And once you get out of that crabs in a bucket mentality, other things open up for you as well. So now where I had to think so hard about things, I'm actually getting advice and data and input from people that I respect that know about these things, that see something in me they used to see in themselves. But now that the armor and the mask is gone, they don't feel like they talking to, a serial killer. You know what I'm saying? They don't mind giving me this data because they feel like, oh, okay, well, you're on your journey too. So working until you burn out, you're never going to be effective, is what I learned. You know what I'm saying? And then as the more you burn out, the worse of the decisions you make. And my goal, I don't know if people ever knew it, that, you know, music was my talent, and I wouldn't even say by trade. I kind of stumbled into it, but
Hmm.
business has always been my passion. And I always wanted to be the CEO of a company. I always wanted to build something bigger than me. I always wanted to put other people in position, to win with their vision, my vision aligning with their goals. And that was the thing. I wanted to wear a suit. I wanted to have clean skin. I wanted to, sit in my house and look at my art and drink nice wine. That was like a thing because I associated that with business. And it was like, okay, how am I going to get to that if I'm out here scrounging for every little thing, right? I don't have
Hmm.
time to think. And, living from a place of abundance is the more I do, the more I'm blessed with, you know what I mean? Because I don't look at it like I got to have it all. It's like, I want to be around people that's smarter than me. I want to be around people who are more poised than I am. You know what I'm saying? I want to be around people that make great decisions because that way I can align myself with that and say, okay, how did you come up with that? And once I started living like that, man, the floodgates started open. Like
Hmm.
opportunities I never could have imagined. Relationships that, to this day I still can't believe when I pick up my phone and it's Tony Robbins. He's like, Jeezy, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, you know what I'm saying? Or Robin Sharma, like, he's like, I'm like, yo, I'm coming out to Tuscany next month. You gonna be there? He's like, I'll be home. Come out the house. Let's have lunch and dinner. I'm just like, John Maxwell coming to my house. Like, who would imagine? And I'm not saying that to the name job. These are people that I love, I respect, I watch their work. Lewis Howes is one of the greatest podcasters I know, but he's like a friend. And we talk. You know what I'm saying? And we have conversations about life and we've done things for each other. But these are the types of things that open up when you stay curious, because you got to do that, and you have an open mind, and you're not living from a place of everything has to be for me. And if I don't do this, I won't survive. You know what I'm saying? So
Sure.
I would advise anybody that, the more curious you stay, and not think that you know everything. And the more that you live in your truth, the more people will actually gravitate towards you because if you're being truthful with yourself, that means somebody who can see that from a mile away feels like, okay, this is somebody I can trust, you know? Mhm.
Curiosity, right? Humbleness, humility, easy
Mm.
to forget and get lost
Right,
when you get caught
right,
up.
right,
You know what I'm
right.
saying? And being in a growth mindset, right? Admitting
Mm,
you don't know everything
mhm,
and learning from others is a great mindset to be in. But you just covered a lot there, right? A big word
mhm,
you mentioned was intention,
mhm,
right? We're talking about legacy building here right now. So everything
mhm,
that you do is
mhm,
going to be in alignment with this intention. But I think in order for people to get to where you are now, I'd love to
mhm,
bring him back a little bit. Let's go
mhm,
back
mhm.
to 20 years ago.
Okay.
Doug
Well,
Motivation
well,
101
that,
before it
that
came
guy,
out. I'd love to know, Jeezy, where were you? Like where were you mentally? Where were you
I was
what
trying
were you
to
chasing at
stay,
the time? Yeah.
I was trying to stay alive and stay out of prison 20 years ago. That's what I
Mm-hmm.
was up against.
Okay.
When I look at my obstacles now, they're not that dire. Um, I knew because I was living out of survival that if I didn't pull this off, I was going to end up where most of my friends were already at, which were, deceased, unalived, or in prison. And that was my reality. That's what I saw. That's what I knew. That's what I believed to be true. And at the same time, you're navigating a jungle, like meaning that you're navigating the cartel, street gangs, robbers, jackers, manipulating friends, people backstabbing you, you're not being as educated as you should, because I had to self-educate myself around that time because I dropped out of school at such a young age.
Mm-hmm.
And like there was a lot of things I didn't really know or understand. So, and this is I want to go back here too, because I don't want to make it sound like that I'm
Take your
John
time.
Gotti or
Yeah.
someone. Um, a lot of people don't know that I grew up abroad, right? So
I
I
didn't know
grew
that.
up in
Yeah.
Japan. Yeah, I grew up in Japan,
Oh,
Okinawa, and I grew
oh.
up in Hawaii. Um, and so my dad was in the military.
Military.
So
Okay. So,
I lived abroad. So my sushi game is impeccable. I had a best, I had a best friend. His name was Cole. And when I spent the night over his house, his mom made us make our own sushi. He was Japanese and black. His dad was black. His mom was Japanese. And
No
so my
way.
dad did a yeah, my dad did a great job of showing us the world, through him being in the military. And my dad and mom was from a small town outside of Atlanta. And they was both a little rough around the edges. My mom a little more so than him. And that was our life, me and my sister. And then my parents got a divorce and I had to move back to Georgia. And it was a culture shock because
Mm,
now I've been from being this kid that was walking on the beach and doing all these things and living life and going off base to see the Yakuts, in their Cadillacs and their suits and being, oh, I'm gonna be like one of those guys. And now I'm back in the hood and I'm back to this reality that only I did for the summer. But now I'm here for good. And I remember the first thing I told myself as a young teen, I had to be about 11 or something like that, maybe 12, if I'm not mistaken. I was like, I can't stay here because if I stay here, like my life is over. So what motivated me was I used to tell my friends all the time, like, yo, there's beaches out there, there's other people, like there's culture. And they're like, what in the hell are you talking about? I'm like, I'm serious because you got to think about it. When you grow up in the hood, your world is a 10-mile radius,
right.
right? And now you're coming back to this place where you can't even maneuver because the store that's across the street, which is the community store, is in a whole nother rival gang's neighborhood. You know what I'm saying?
Mm,
So even for you to go get some milk, you're risking your life. You know what I'm saying? Or to go down the street get some gas because, but this is my reality, and I came
mm,
from a family. Um, most weren't educated, so most
interesting.
worked at factories
Right.
and things like that. My dad was in the military. One of my uncles, I love him to death. His name was Hoss. He was like the staple to the family because he was married, he had his life together. So he was the guy I aspired to be. And then you have like my other uncles who were like dipping and dabbing in drugs and my aunties and stuff. So this is my reality. So I'm looking at this and I'm going, okay, I'm assessing my surroundings and my ecosystem. I'm going, how do I get back to what I know? Because nobody else seems to understand what I'm telling them.
It's a big world out
So
there.
yeah, so I'm like, but I want to get back to sushi. I want to get back to like having friends that are like from different places. Just what I knew to be true, you know what I mean? And I was just like, and the traveling, you know what I mean? Because I love to travel. So I'm like, I'm not gonna be able to travel in this town of, population of, 2,500 people. You know what I'm saying? So I started this thing in my head where every day I just wanted to take a small step of getting out of that and getting back to what I knew.
Sure.
And I tried everything from throwing watermelons to taking a job at McDonald's to all these things, but it didn't make sense because I'm looking around at my cousins and they coming, every time I see them, they got new shoes, they driving new cars, they got the prettiest girls. And I'm just like, what is it that y'all doing that I need to do? So I just started being around them and understudying. And my superpower is that I'm a sponge, right? And in American culture was different from any other cultures. There's like, cause Italian, Asian, Russian. You think about it, they respect their elders like they put them on a pedestal. Like these are the people that know everything. Like they got
Mm,
everything.
hmm.
Not to say that there is anything wrong with my culture, but if you're in the neighborhood and you're an older guy and you ain't doing so good, I'm not listening to you. You see what I'm saying? Because you haven't done good with your life. Is how we looked at it. But I didn't see it that way because I always felt like older people just had wisdom and knowledge anyway. And I love to hear them talk because that's how I
Mm.
was learning things. So what I would
Also,
do is just, yeah, I would just sit around and just listen. I didn't, my uncle used to tell me, listen more than you talk. That's why you got two ears. And I took that to heart because I was like, well, he's smart. And I used to sit around and listen. And what I started to understand is the mistakes that they made. So instead of looking at what they did as if they didn't make it, I looked at their mistakes and I was just like, oh, okay, that's something I shouldn't do. So, okay, this is something that I shouldn't do. This didn't work for him. Not what was working because I can see that what didn't work. And once I started to get that data, the other piece that helped me out was music. I loved music. So Tupac was my therapist before I even knew I needed a therapist. Like
mhm, right.
most people listen to the music to enjoy it. I listened to that as if it was a podcast back
Hmm.
then. I
Hmm.
wanted to hear what he was saying so I would know the rules, know the values, and that's how I was building my moral compass and my value system because okay, you do this, you don't do that. this is the way you're supposed to be, because he was a revolutionary. And I had never seen that before, right? Even in my family, nobody really risked their life to show somebody else anything else. So with all that being said, I'm taking all this data and now I'm getting into the streets. And as I got into the streets, the two things that I told myself is, well, three things. I got to take care of my mother and my sister. Uh, and I got to put my sister through school and I got to help my mom out. Because at the time she was cleaning like people's toilet bowls and stuff like that. And this is my mother. So I'm just like, man. Uh, and the other thing was, don't go to jail, don't go to prison, and don't get killed. Those are the only things that kept me in line. So anything that looked like it would remotely go to that, then that's when I was just like, okay, I need to straighten this back up. Now, mind you, this is the early 90s and stuff like that. 80s, 90s, so 90s early. So when all these epidemics are hitting and you're in this demonized, repressed place, my friends, like, because everybody's smoking weed and doing stuff like that. At the time, I was like, nah, I'm gonna stay away from that because I saw what that did to him, and it led to other things. So as you're hustling and you're getting out in the streets, I'm protected because my family is a respected family. So I'm basically hustling off my auntie's porch. You know what I'm saying? So they know all the police, so they're not coming over there because she's hustling. You know what I'm saying? We hustling together. You know what I'm saying? And it's like she had this place where it was a safe haven for people who at the time were smoking, crack and things like that. And not that she facilitated it like a bad person. She was just a good person that everybody wanted to be around. They had no judgment. You see what I'm saying? But for
Sure.
me, that was a safe haven to go, oh, well, if I sit here, I'm safe and I can hustle. You know what I'm saying? So that was my thing. I just started, hustling and getting myself together. And over time, I used to just listen and just watch. And I started to notice that people were just doing it to survive. I had a bigger plan, and I'll go to that later on, even with the music. I
Mm.
was like, how can I use this to put myself in a better position to take care of my mom and my sister and to get me out of here?
Sure. Yeah.
And that was my goal, and to get me back to what I knew, which was a life that I had grown to love and wanted to continue to live. But if I didn't, this was going to be my reality forever. So now you got my friends that are dying, because now you got things that are happening. And like, mind you, I never knew that you can die. How about that? You know what I'm saying? One of my first friends that died that I knew of, his name was Marcus Clemens. And he was the person that taught me how to hustle.
Mm.
And I remember him getting killed one morning before school because he got into it with smoker is what we call him. And the smoker tried to rob him and he ended up shooting him and killing him. And my auntie was like, you heard what happened to Marcus? And I'm like, she said he got shot. I said, well, can I see him when I get out of school? And she said, baby, he's gone. I'm like, gone where? And she's like, he's gone. And I couldn't, like, all day in school, I'm just like, I couldn't process it. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like I couldn't understand what she meant. But then I started to see, the patterns of that, and that's what made me come up with my rules. Don't get killed and don't go to prison, because I'm knowing prison ain't for me. My neighborhood is not for me at this point. You know what I mean? Because these kids are like way more rougher, way more. They don't really have this emotional EQ because they growing up in poverty and trauma. Like they really like having to survive, and I'm just new to the neighborhood. So with that being said, I said, how am I going to survive this environment? And what I knew to be true was the more data and the more knowledge that you have about your surroundings, it's like intel. You just navigate it from a different point. I'm not the toughest guy out here because the toughest guy here is willing to die about this. I'm definitely not trying to do that. So what do? I go back to what I know and what I learned in when I was overseas, staying curious and learning. And as I learned that, oh, you just have to be the smartest one. If you're smart, you know what I'm saying? You can alleviate all the other stuff. So I just really dove in and ran this thing like I was a CEO of a Fortune 500 company. And one of my things that I learned, I remember this older guy told me, is like, never let people know your position in this. And what I would do is I had got so good at it and I was so great at how I was doing it. I would go to school, get out of school, ride my bike. I was making more money than the older guys. But I knew they saw me and they just started being curious, asking me certain things. So what I would do was I would go in third person. I would be like, hey, give me your money. So I'm going around the hood getting all the older guys' money and say, give me your money, give me your money. I'm gonna go holler at this guy I know that y'all don't know.
Right.
Right. And I'll be back in a day and a half. Now, mind you, I go home, go to my grandmother's house, count all the money, put it in my safe, and I sit in the house for 2 days. But I already got what they need. I'll just go back and give
Right.
it to them. They're like, hey, appreciate your little homie. Tell your guy, I want to get back with him at the end of the week. So now I'm learning that if I don't let these people know that it's me, I can continue this forever.
Right.
And I started to like build up and build up and build up. And then before you knew it, I had maybe like 20, 10, 15, 20 towns around where I was. You know what I'm saying? They was calling me Lil J because that's what my grandma called me.
Hmm.
And I wasn't doing it to get rich. I was doing it to get me and my sister and my mom in a better position and get me up out of there. So I bought my mom a trailer. The trailer was like $3,500. It was probably about 300 square feet with 10 around it. So if the wind blow, it'd probably blow it away. But that was our home. And me and my mom, and my sister stayed in this small, tiny trailer on a back road, and that was our home. And we stayed there until my mom really got tired of me. And one day she pulled a gun on me because we got to arguing about me not going to school. And I went to live with my grandmother. Um, and when I went to live with my grandmother, like she didn't give me no type of boundaries. She's like, her grandbabies did everything. And they gave me a free range. I'm 14, 15 years old. I'm coming in the house right before school. You know what I'm saying? It's
And
6:30 in the
you
morning.
dropped out of school in what, sixth grade?
Yeah, like seven. Yeah, my dad, and
Seventh
I gotta
grade?
straighten that out. Yeah, my dad almost he went in on me. He's like, "Don't be telling nobody
Yeah.
you dropped out." In sixth grade, so like the seventh, the beginning of the eighth. Yeah, and I
Sure.
and I only really dropped out because I was on to something. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like it was happening. And to go back to what your question is, just like I just learned to learn, and that's what the intention was. I was learning to learn, and that's how I was able to navigate. And right now to this day, I can say that's what helps me navigate life because I have the mental GPS, even if I get thrown off. And to go fast forward a little bit, when we go back to the music, that's how I was able to know what I had to do to get the music done because I had the same scarcity mentality. And I was like, okay, I'm in this. Let me just make the best out of it because we're going to be showing up to these clubs and buying, 100 bottles of Cristal and throwing two, $300,000 in there every night. Let me at least turn it into some marketing. So that was my mindset. While we was all spending money, but I'm like, I'm about to market this. So I got the
Right.
jerseys on with Jeezy and the chain with Jeezy on it.
Building a
Like,
brand.
you're right, I'm building the brand, but by the way, it ain't like I'm a good rapper. You know what I'm saying? But I'm emulating what I'm seeing. I used to see
Right.
Busta Rhymes and Spliff Star. They would have like the Air Force Ones with the matching jersey. So I would like, go get a Budweiser Air Force One with a Budweiser jersey with my name on it. So I was really just emulating what I was seeing in the city. But I took that and along with the game that I was getting from the people that I was around, and I just really gave it my all like I did when I was, trying to figure out how to get out the neighborhood because everything was taking me a step further or closer to what I wanted to be true. And just to kind of reiterate on that, because I digress, is that every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock, I take myself out to a sushi dinner to remind me of how that sushi made me want to stay focused and get back to what I
Hmm.
knew. Because to me, I felt like that was like the time of my life when I was a kid. I was happy. I loved going over to Cole's house and making sushi with his mom. And I felt like this was just such an experience because I love food, but it's just like, this is something that I've never experienced before. Learning how to eat with chopsticks, learning what's what, when you mix with what, and how do you make this. And it was just like, and then it was gone. You know what I'm saying? And that was a part of happiness I associated with my best friend. And then when I got myself in a better position, I had to say, you know what? You have to remind yourself of the things that made you, like stay focused and stay disciplined. because that was a bigger piece. Like I had to stay disciplined because if I got off on the wrong track, it wasn't like I was just gonna, it wasn't like I was just gonna be able to get back on the right track. If I got on the wrong track, I could possibly been, unalived. If I got on the wrong track, I possibly could have did, 20, 30 years like some of my friends. I'm gonna be honest,
A lot of
like
pressure.
that's one of my biggest nightmares. It's like I've had nightmares about being in prison. I'm like, how in the hell can
Yeah.
I do this for 20 years? I'm not even gonna be, value any value to my family or myself sitting somewhere for 20 years. You know what I'm saying? I
Right.
don't wish that on anybody. But it's just like that
It's
was the reality. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's not fun living in fear, right? And
Mm.
and having that kind of pressure on you for a
Right.
while. And you mentioned, you mentioned a lot of different things there, and like, look, like I've got friends that trap to pay for their, kid, brothers, college tuition. My
Hmm.
brother
Hmm.
trapped to pay for himself and my
Hmm.
family. And like, I'm like really happy you shared that, because I think what's really important in this entire interview is that people like don't put labels on themselves, whether
Correct.
you're an addict or whether you're a trap, whatever it is, that doesn't define you. And I think
Right.
that's really important. And even a bigger message there, what I'm hearing, Jay, is call it the school of hard knocks, right? You had to teach
Mm.
yourself. You had to
Mm.
learn by doing. And
Mm.
we're taught as a culture to go to school, get
Right.
good grades,
Mm.
get to the highest education, then
Hmm.
go get your MBA, then
Hmm.
and then go work your butt off and make a
Mm.
bunch of money, and never
And
really
pay
have to
and
think
pay your loan back. How
and
about
pay your
that?
loan back
Right.
and pay your
Right.
loan back and go
Right.
back into debt.
Right.
So
Right.
so what I always find interesting, what I want to like really study is like your signature, right? Like
Mm.
what's your mark? What Roger Federer, let's say he's got a left hand backhand. Brady's got
Right.
a fourth quarter comeback. Kobe's got a
Mm.
turnaround jump shot.
Mm.
You found
Hmm.
your signature
You exactly
when
tell me.
you
I'm
were
gonna tell you
trapping.
what it is. Okay, so two things I want to say, and thank you for sharing that. The first thing you said was fear, which is crazy because a lot of people think the opposite of fear is well, the opposite of fear is love, right?
Mm,
You know what I'm saying? Is the opposite of fear is love, because that's what it's built on. A lot of people think it's the other way around, but it's love. My mark, and I'm learning it every day because I have learned by trial and error the things that I know. That means so I know them deeply. I can look you in your eyes if you say something and say, I absolutely wouldn't do that. Let me tell you why. Right?
mm,
Because I know it to be true. Because I've lived in situations where you did these things and they could cost you, your life, your fortune, whatever. Right. But what I've learned in my signature is two things. It's twofold. Is that I am a sponge and I'm willing to go outside my comfort zone to
mm,
get the information, the data, and the knowledge that I need to get to help me to survive, which then goes into the second fold, which is adversity, because that's what I am. That is my major in the school of
mm-hmm.
hard knocks, because I've been up against some
Overcoming.
shit, right? Because I'm not scared to go ask somebody what they think. I went to Italy. I had some life things going on. I went to Italy and sat in Robin Sherman's backyard, looking at rolling hills up into the mountains, and I'm just looking. First of all, like this is crazy, and we're just sitting
How
in
am
this
I here?
pool having right, having spaghetti, and I go. He looks at me. He goes, "Where's your team of your handlers?" And I go, "I came by myself." And he goes, "I said my spirit told me to come talk to you." He said, "That's very brave of you." He said, "How can I help you?" I said, "Actually, I got these 7 questions." I said, "You mind if I break out my pad?" He's like, "No, no, no, no." And we sat there and we talked about all these things. And it got to the point where he was asking me questions to ask him back. And he took my pad and started writing. So I came back from Italy with this pad from Robin Sharma that was almost full with
Mm,
all this knowledge and all this data and all this understanding. And my job is to take these things that I'm learning from all these different people and process it and then translate it to my culture, because in simplest form, something that's digestible, because that's who I am, right?
mm,
my life path number is a seven. I had to figure out why I like so much solitude, why I like data, and why I got to know the answers. So twofold is the adversity thing is real for me because that's what fulfills me. Every time I'm in the roughest situation, I have to get in this place where I go through my things. I'm frustrated. I'm mad. I'm upset. I'm this. Why they doing me like that? Then I go, hold up. This is you. This is what you do. Let's sit back. And something in my spirit just pulls me with the universe to where I need to go and who I need to talk to.
Yeah, you're
And it may
tapped
be
into a
somebody,
higher frequency, my friend.
yeah, it's somebody from my that might have been in my phone 2 years and I haven't talked to him. Be like, hey man, how you doing? I said, you got time for lunch tomorrow? You mind if I fly out and see you? That you know, have a couple conversations. He's like, yeah, whatever. And it just like it just pulls me in these directions because my intentions, going back to the word, are real. Like I'm not doing this because I want to be famous or I want to be rich anymore or I want to be this, I want to be that. This is who I am. I
Hmm.
am a vessel for wisdom, knowledge, and data. And I don't mind going down to sit down with somebody because that came back from when I was younger. 'Cause I would sit with older people and ask questions, right? I didn't care. A child can teach you something if you ask them. So I always wanted to talk to people and stay curious and get the information. And that's why adversity is so real for me because in my mind, this is how I see it. It might sound crazy to you. It's like I get to be two people. I get to be Bruce Wayne and Batman. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm Bruce Wayne right now because I'm sitting here with my polo on and we have this conversation. But when I go out, do what I got to do tonight, I'm Batman because these people are like, I just watched this man go through this, this, and that, and he survived it, and he's still trying to give me knowledge. What is that? You know what I'm saying? Because that's what fulfills me because when I'm in situations, and this is another thing too I never shared because at some point
Sure.
in my life, when this is all over, I definitely want to be a life coach. I want to be someone who sits down with people, help them work through things, understand things. Because for me,
You do it
I can
naturally,
live
right?
right. I can
Yeah.
hear it and I can go, you want me to tell you, you want me to agree with you, you want me to tell you the truth, or you want me to tell you what I think? You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying?
Hmm.
That's my thing. And I could be like, they'd be like, okay, what do you think? And I could be like, okay, have you ever thought about this? And then we kind of work through it, and I'd be like, okay. And by the time we're done with the conversation, they don't went back to a time when they was 13 and this happened, and that's why they don't. That's why they're this way with people, and they understand that. And I
Mm.
go, okay, I can't help you with it as this, but I just want to help you to identify it. Now you can go talk to somebody. But even my thing
Peel
with
back the layers of the onion.
right, and even my because I had to do the work. You know what I'm saying? And even my thing with therapists, people go, black culture, you think of it as weak. I
Mm.
wasn't sitting nobody telling my problems. But when I started to figure out things from when I was 14 was affecting me in my 40s, I'm like, hold up,
Mm.
that don't even make sense. But I wanted to dig into it and go face it because you can't run from it. I want to be a better person for my children. I want to be a better person for my culture, a better person for me. So I'm saying all that to say is it changed my life tremendously. So
Sure.
even when I tell a grown man that I know, yeah, I got a therapist. Actually, I talked to her today. They're like, really? Tell me about it. But to me, that's still pouring into people because they're saying if that's safe enough for him, maybe it's safe enough for me. Or if that helped you, because I got older friends that ask me all the time, what are you doing now? I'm like, okay, I'm reading this book, I'm talking to this person, and then I'm doing this every day. And, I even created a summit to have a group chat with like 40 of my, closest like
Right.
guys, and we take golf trips, this, that, and the third. We talk, we motivate each other every day. If somebody's going through something
Support group.
real,
Yeah, yeah.
we as a support group. And then we also do a lot of business together, which makes it great. And we also give each other insight because everybody's smart. This is
Mm.
something I never had. Most of my friends when I was growing up, I was just hoping they didn't, put a gun to my back when they got me in the corner by myself. You know what I'm saying? So this is a different thing, but I had to be open enough to receive that, and I had to do work with myself to receive things because now I'm coming from a survivor's mind state to a mindset of abundance, and I don't feel the need to have to be in fight or flight, and that's important, right? And even as a businessman, if you're in fight or flight, you thinking everybody trying to get over on you. Who wants to do business with somebody that paranoid? You know what I'm saying? You want to do business with somebody who has sound mind and be like, don't think I agree with that. Let me process it. I say I'll get back with you. Give me a couple days and we'll talk about it then. And then you go to these people, you say, hey, look, no, you didn't mean it. I know this wasn't intentional, but this, that, and the third. That's that. And they look at you and they go, you know what? Absolutely. I can see it. If we can do that, we can get the deal done. Done. But you coming from somebody who was like going to see somebody in the car, you gotta hope that, when you give them this bag, you don't blow your head off. You know what I'm saying? So imagine, you know what I'm saying? So you wanna get rid of
Well,
some of that residue as you go into this new phase of life. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, I mean, just what you shared there, like all of that built up, in your mind for your entire life, like you need a
Yeah,
release, right? And I'm
yeah,
glad you found that in your therapist, and I'm glad you surrounded yourself around other people who want the best out of you. I'm sure you've been
correct.
surrounded by a lot of people who want to bring you down, or maybe
Absolutely.
think they want the best out of you, but they actually don't.
Right.
Let's maybe hang there a little bit.
Okay.
You talked about data streams earlier. You
Mm,
talked about
mm,
kind of
mm, mm.
I'm a sponge.
Yep.
I think really what you're doing is like you're expanding consciousness, right?
Mm,
You're absorbing and downloading, and then you're releasing that
mm,
data into the consciousness to help people grow and mature and
mm,
become
mm,
better individuals. Now,
mm,
with a platform like yours, though, I mean, let's be
mm,
honest, you reach probably, I mean, I don't know, but probably billions of people.
mm,
Like, what do you feel a responsibility to do that now? Are you trying to
mm.
leverage that platform to do it, or no? Or are you just trying to do your thing and go, figure out what you want to do, living in your intention? Like, where are you now with this expanding of consciousness?
Well, this is it. So even as when I was younger, I just felt like I was a natural born leader. Just understood how to lead people,
Yeah, I can see
and yeah, and when I got into music, I, for most, and maybe because I came under the tutelage of Tupac, like everything he said to me, all of it didn't make sense, but it all made sense. Meaning that he was intentional about his message, given his background of how he's brought up, Black Panther Party, his mom being they was, advocates and all that stuff. Like it made sense because he had a moral compass that was his. I was trying to find my moral compass. Even with my first album, Thug Motivation 101, which we're actually celebrating 20 years this year. We can get into that later on. From the first day, I just wanted to be heard, right? But I automatically knew more so than being someone who's going to get on the stage and have people love them. This is the position of leadership. This is what this is. This is leadership. So anything you say, you better mean it. And 20 years now, if I go to the park with my daughter, nobody's walking on me saying, "Oh, that's that guy that made that goofy song about being ignorant." And if you ever listen to my music, it was always about being on the defense, protecting your family, sticking to your code, you know what I'm saying, and doing right by people.
doing you,
And that's
being
yeah,
yourself.
yeah, and that's who I was. And of course, you're not gonna make everybody happy. My grandma used to tell me that you'd be crazy. You know, nobody can make everybody happy. The manager at Walmart, all the employees are not happy. You trust me. But with that being said, the music was the vessel that I learned because it made people interested in who you are. And when I was kind of going off of what I was learning from Pac, it got to a point, but I was like, but if he was still alive, where would he took this? You see what I'm saying? Because
Mhm.
he when he died, the game stopped with him. It stopped there, and he died street living. Here I am, coming out of this on my, at the time about my seventh LP. I got big, business deals with Avion Tequila. I got, real estate. I got, stock market. I got all these things. And I'm sitting around, I'm going like, oh, this is still just about me. You know what I'm saying? And that didn't sit well. And so I took some time off and I continued with my self-work. And I'm like, what do I want to do? And it's like, well, you have to do this because this is who you are. But what can I do to continue to pour into my culture and continue to pour into my people? And that's when I was like, you know what? You have to lead by example. I'm not a role model, but I'm going to lead by example to continue to kick in doors to show them that look, you can't let anyone box you in and tell you that you're one thing. If all my kids can say that I was a great artist, when this is all said and done, I didn't do my job. You know what I'm saying? I'm a great man. I'm a great father first, right? And I take
Mhm.
that very seriously. You know what I'm saying? I'm a great friend. I take that very seriously. You know what I'm saying? I'm a great person. I take that very seriously. I don't have to be rude to people to get my point across. And by the way, all the gangsters I knew from back in the day, didn't have to say much anyway. You know what I'm saying? They was gentlemen. You know what I'm saying? It's just like you just knew. You know, the loudest person and the most aggressive person in the room, he's scared to death. Just know that.
Right.
That's what I had to
Right.
learn. But this new age of where I am, why I'm doing this symphony tour and all these things is because I want to keep showing my culture that no matter what, you can continue to evolve and still be you. You can package it different, and it's okay because if you don't grow, you die anyway, right? And it's
Hmm.
just like I'll take chances where it might not be the popular decision. You see what I'm saying? Like it
Hmm.
might not. Like the things that happen in verses, like it wasn't about me. It was like I gotta do this. God is telling me that you gotta stop this, and you got to show people you gotta be brave enough to look like to look like you taking another way out that nobody would agree to. But it has to stop. And even if it doesn't stop
Hmm.
here, it may be two generations. You might save a whole generation of someone's life just by saying, everybody goes to war. We went to war with plenty of countries, but at the end of the war, we had to chalk it up and keep it moving. You know what I'm saying? Like they had to go live their life. We had to go live ours. We can't continue to be in this thing. We came to some type of resolution and it's done. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? And
Hmm.
whatever that is, and everybody go and live their life, and whoever won, whatever, whatever. But everybody, life goes on. But if you get in this violent cycle of ego, and like they say, a bad day for the ego is a great day for the soul. I can't tell you the amount of peace that I have because I made some decisions that people might have looked at as unpopular, but it sat well with my spirit and my heart. You know what I'm
Well,
saying? And then as I,
let
mhm,
let's go. I want to dive in there real quick. I really want to
mhm,
help people listening, right?
mhm,
Like
mhm.
tell me about a time when it was really hard to give someone forgiveness, where you overcame
ah,
that and squashed it.
ah. First of all, I had to forgive my mother and she's a great person, but just for her trauma and what she went through and how that kind of bled
Mm,
off into my
it's
life.
big.
And I really had to like come to grips with that she's just sharing. She's my mother, but she's just sharing, and that's okay. And I don't even know what her father probably done to her or did to her to make her that way, or her upbringing was. So I had to give her grace, and that was like the biggest one. I mean, she
Mm,
was I mean, she passed during COVID, but those months I got to spend with her and talk to her and be with her and forgive her. Like it's that shows me how God works because she
mm,
could have passed suddenly. You know what I'm
mhm,
saying? But he gave me time with her. He gave us time alone.
mm.
I used to go sit with her, watch her favorite shows. We listen to music. She laugh. We talk. And to me, that was like the biggest blessing I ever got. And I'll never forget. It was after it happened. And then things that happened to me when I was younger, like with people that was in my life that did foul things to me, and I had to forgive. And if you want to know the biggest one, it was myself. You see what I'm saying? Because
Sure.
I had to really like forgive myself. And I never forget I had this vision, my meditation, where I was in this house in a farmhouse and it was in a big field. And when I walked in the house, the TV was on and it was on cartoons. And I never forget it. And I'm just like heard someone sniffling in the basement. And I went to the basement and it was dark, dingy, or whatever. And I remember walking into the corner and I saw this kid in the corner and I'm like, whoa. And I walk in and I tap him on the shoulder and I say, hey man, you okay? And he turned around. It was me when I was like 8.
Oh wow.
It blew. I'm talking about when I say it was like my soul left my body. I was so like,
Sure.
oh my God. And I remember sitting there just looking at him crying. And I just said, look, man, I'm an adult now. I'll take care of us. I got us. And he looked at me, he said, you promise? And I said, I do.
Mm.
And I tell you, like this heaviness,
Weight
it's
off
like
your
one of the
shoulders.
most right. It was like
Older.
it was so heavy, man. And I just remember um the next time I had that vision, I was at the same house and I came in the living room. He was sitting in the living room and I go, hey man, what's up? What are you doing? He's like, I'm watching TV. Come watch it with me, watch TV. I said, man, what do you want to do? He said, I want to have fun. And I took him outside. He ran around the yard all day, swinging the swing, did everything. You know what I'm saying? And then he looked at me and said, I want a pizza. Took him, had pizza, and we had a great conversation. And I told him, look, I got us from here on out. I'll take care of us. I'll make sure nobody hurt us again, all that. And it was like the most, but I had to, I said, but can I ask you something? And it's the same thing I asked my mom when I saw her now. I said, can you forgive me? And he said, yeah. And that was like, that was, when I say
Mm.
it was like, when I woke up the next morning, I promise you, like, as time went on, people would see me and be like, yo, you
Something's
look so
changed. A
much,
lightness about
yes,
you.
yeah, like you
Yeah.
got this aura about you, and I had
Mm.
so much like confidence. You know what I'm saying? I had
Mm.
confidence. I had self-awareness that I never knew I had. It's like I had a feeling and an aura around me that no matter what happens, I'll be okay.
Right.
No matter what. I don't have to even look at it as winning and losing. If I lose, I learn a lesson, but no matter what happens, it'll be okay. And even my business and my decision making and everything just changed. You know what I'm saying?
Got
Because I
clear.
felt like it just got clear. And if I had to go back to anything else, I just think like going through street life, I had people do a lot of crazy things, you know what I'm saying? And I had to do a lot of crazy things too to show people that I wasn't, playing about that. But that didn't make sense anymore. And I think being in a world where you're still gonna see people, no matter what, you know what I'm saying? You're gonna see somebody to know them, they're gonna see somebody to know you. It's the world. Nobody's going anywhere. I think the biggest thing for me was knowing that all these people that did these things to me that they don't realize, they did it out of fear. And once I understood that, fear and scarcity, when I understood that and understand that it wasn't personal and it wasn't about me, I was able to forgive them and give them grace. And I wrote a
Right.
long list of people that I felt like, did me wrong. And they probably think the same about me because why wouldn't they? And I just said at the bottom of the list, I forgive you. And I
Right.
remember writing the names down and
So powerful.
sitting out by this fireplace and I burnt the list and prayed and hey, here
There
we
you
are.
go. Y- it's so powerful, right? And you hit the nail on the head, right? Love can overcome fear. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just curious, like who introduced you to God and like how did you build that
Oh,
connection?
my grandmother. My
Mm.
grandmother, the biggest blessing, because I've never one time in my whole entire life have had a conversation with my parents about God or
Right.
religion or faith.
Right.
Never. It never came up in my house one time. But immediately when I moved in with my grandmother, that was the only rule. You do what you want to do, little Jay, you go everywhere, but Sunday morning we going to church. And
Sure.
some mornings we would walk. She put on her, in my mind, I'm like, it's just a fashion show for you. You know what I'm saying? You just want to put on these dresses and these hats. But she loved it. But I was there. I didn't understand it then, right?
Mm.
But I paid attention, like, because I am a sponge and I did watch and I started to understand, okay, this is how this works. This is what they're doing. I go to Sunday school and all these things. But I immediately learned in my life when I was at some of my lowest moments, like when I had went through all this stuff and in the streets and I finally got on in music and it was happening. I had already spent, $4 or $5 million of my own money and it was finally happening. And boom, I'm doing a show in this country West Bunk club on top of a speaker because they don't have a stage, and my vocal cords split.
Oh, right. Right.
Right, and my vocal cords split, and now I can't talk. And I got two record deals. I got a record deal with Def Jam, and I got a record deal with Bad Boy for Boys in the Hood, but I can't talk.
Oh man.
Right, and I'm so scared. I'm so scared. Then around the same time, I got Bell's palsy. So my face was, so all this is
I didn't know
happening at
that.
one
Wow.
time. Yeah,
Oh
all this
geez.
happened at one time. It's like, it was just, I gained so much weight because I was sitting in the bed, I was eating, and I was just like scared. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to, like, and I remember Coach K was just like, yo, man, we can go get you surgery and we'll get you checked out. And then I was writing on the thing, I said, I don't have any insurance. And he's like, oh. And then he came back and said, well, we got to pay for it cash. So I remember counting the money out. It was like 60 grand,
Mm.
65,000. I put it in the bag and I gave it to him. And he figured it out how to pay for my surgery. And that whole time, all I did was pray. Because I'm like,
Mm.
if this doesn't work, and not to mention, because Thug Motivation was already recorded, not to mention when this was going on, it was supposed to come out in July. This is around this time, May,
Right.
right? one of the interns who was mad that he wasn't on the project leaked the
Leaked
project.
it. Right.
Right. So imagine that. You're laying on the bed, you got Bell's palsy, you can't talk.
Rock bottom.
Right, you 5'8". I'm almost 220 pounds. I got stomach, skin bad, I'm depressed. I don't know who I can trust. I'm paranoid. People making diss records. I don't even know what to do.
And you're just praying.
Praying. I just kept praying. I just kept praying. I kept praying. I kept praying. I kept praying. And then it didn't happen fast enough. And I kept saying, like, oh wow, maybe he doesn't hear me. And I just kept praying and praying and praying, but I never stopped. I never stopped. Even to this day, I'm praying twice a day. Like I never stopped. And I just started to understand that in due time, things will get better. This too shall pass. Like it's not gonna be like this forever. So you gotta stay in the middle of the road and not sway and lose your faith. And my grandmother taught me that at such a young age. It's like just no matter what, just keep your faith. He's not gonna put so much on you you can't handle it. But if you keep your faith, it may come back around. And if it don't, just keep your faith. And I kept my faith, and you know, I got the surgery. I started getting myself healthy, and that's when I started. And by the way, this is right before the recession album, and that's when I lost all this weight. I got like
Well, let's let's
chiseled.
let's go back to since it's the 20-year anniversary. Let's
Right,
stay on Thug
right,
Motivation real quick.
right, right.
It gets leaked.
Mhm.
It gets leaked.
Yep.
What did we do? And I heard we're trying to take literally albums off the streets. Is that
Okay, so
right?
first of all, I went to the studio. My guy called me. I went to the studio, and I'm not going front.
Oh,
I went there to handle my business.
yep,
So,
yep, yep.
and I remember getting out the car, and I get ready to do it, and my man stepped in front of the kid. He's like, "You can't do it, man." I was like, "I got to. This is over. We don't got nothing.
Learn your lesson.
This is it. This is it." You know what I'm saying? And I
Yeah,
remember
right,
I was going, and he did. He got in front of me. He said, you got to do it to me too." And I was just like, you know what I'm saying? So anyway, me and my guy end up, roughing the guy up or whatever, and whatever, whatever. And then
right.
I never forget him laying in the bed, and this is how I found it. So it got leaked. Birthday bash is this thing we do every year that was with the radio station. So it was like 50,000 people. It was crazy.
Oh wow.
So right before birthday bash, we found out that it was in the bootleggers because people were playing the album. I'm like, how they find it? So we bought two vans, no, three vans, and then I had all my homies come up from the hood, and we all had tasks. And every day we would just run up and all the bootleggers, run up on the floor,
Scare him a
what
little
I'm
bit.
saying? Right, right. With ski mask on, the bandanas, and take it down there. You better not ever sell this, and like,
You're not selling these here.
right, right. Selly's here. And it's like it would be like they got so good at it, like I'd be like, they say this is the bootlegger, then we'll go in there, it'll be like a small room, and they might have like t-shirts on the wall, and I'm like, this is a bootlegger, we gotta just wait and see. Then you might see
Right.
a t-shirt move or something, and then the door might open and somebody comes behind this trap door. You're like, there it is, we all running there. So like we running up at all the
Well,
bootleggers, and we're taking CDs, and we're threatening them, of course, because it's like, yo man, you can't do this, not with this.
right.
So around this time I'm sitting in the bed, and I see this thing on the news, and they talk about cracking down on all the bootleggers. And like this was a big thing about the bootleggers. Now, mind you, I used to buy Cash Money bootleg CDs outside of Magic City, which is a strip club, and I
Mhm.
didn't think nothing was wrong until they had mine. So now I'm feeling it. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So
Now this is
boom,
this is 2005, correct?
yeah, 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 yeah. It's fine. But I'm saying before that, I used to buy bootlegs.
Right.
So right. So now I'm feeling it myself. So now you're taking money out of my pocket. So long story short, we did that for about 2.5 months. And I remember going to the birthday bash, and I was gonna do a set, and I was coming out to do Trap or Die, which was my mixtape that we was giving away in the street, right?
Right.
To
Right.
build up the buzz. And I was gonna do that. And so I ran through about 3, 4 songs. In some type of way, my DJ hit one of the wrong buttons, and it dropped bottom of the map. Dun dun
Crazy.
dun dun dun. 40,000 people. It's young Jills from the bottom. And I looked back at my DJ, and I was like, oh man, it's over. They already
Yeah.
got it. I'll never be able to sell
They're
another
already
CD.
spread.
Right.
Yeah.
What I didn't know, if we go back to God again, the biggest blessing I ever had in my life. Before I even hit the road, the bootleg was everywhere. Detroit, Chicago, DC, Tennessee. It was already
Gotcha.
solidified. It was already platinum in the streets. And this is the thing. Like Soul Survivor, I wasn't gonna put on the album. It was like four records I wasn't gonna put on there because I was like, I'm trying to stay street. Because I kept feeling, and then what I wasn't gonna put on the album because I kind of felt like it was too big for what I was doing and where I was coming from was like, I got to keep it real. I got to keep it real. Those songs were already solidified. I called Def Jam. I'm like, yo, Trap or Die is a single. They say, listen, man, you put your money in your mouth where you want to put it at. When are we shooting Soul Survivor and where? Because that's where
Exactly.
we going. So I'm like, y'all want to go with that record? They're like, absolutely. So it went from me being this hometown hero to I'm going to the airport to take flights, and people be like, hey, Con and Young Jeezy. And I'm like, and even from other countries. Because I didn't realize how big
Eastern
Akon
Central.
was. Yeah, I didn't know that. Because I knew Akon from being in Atlanta. I didn't know this other world stuff, you know what I'm saying? So,
Oh
which I
yeah,
went
he's
on to
huge.
know. He's huge. I didn't know that because I knew him from being in the club and hanging around us. So I didn't know that. And to answer your question, it was like the biggest blessing I ever had when it came to that was the bootleggers because they did all the work.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like they did all the work. Right now, I think Thug Motivation is almost three times platinum. They did that because we didn't really have any marketing set up. We was trying to market it, but by the time it came out, they had already made the songs what they were. So when the mainstream grabbed onto it, and that's what I wasn't banking on because I didn't have any mainstream fans. I just had fans that were like street people who knew it from, just like culture. So now you walking through, the airport or you going to restaurants and and the chef is coming out. Jeezy, I love you, man. I'm like, what? Hey, you got Michael Phelps, saying swimming to your music, and you're like, what is going on? And it was just
Li-
like it was the influx of that, and I'm like, oh, Thug Motivation ain't
Life
just
will never
about
be the same.
no, 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 no. It was like it was almost scary because now I gotta do this for real now. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Because now I gotta navigate it because now everybody knows who I am, and now I'm going through survivor's remorse because I'm like, okay, how do I maintain what I built? I got an army. You know what I'm saying?
Mm,
Like I'm moving around with 100 people. Like it's like,
mm,
but now I got to work for real because if I don't maintain this, it's all going back where it was.
right.
And now I'm having to make decisions I never thought I would have to make. So it was bittersweet. But it also made me snap back into this is leadership. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So how are you gonna lead? And of course I had my mishaps, but my intentions were good, like throughout the whole time. I never looked at this like it was about me, me, me. But I will say, going back to what you said earlier, I did have my egotistic year. I did.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
had that. I'm the man, I'm the guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, I go to a restaurant, it's like, you sit me down now. You know what I mean? And it was like, I went through that whole phase, and then one day somebody told me, like, I never forget it. It was just like, you were always a nice person. Don't ever forget that. And I was like, yeah, I was, right? I was like, yeah, and it kind of just started to peel back those layers and get back to myself because this
Right.
is a high. This is something that everybody who, you knew told you that wouldn't work or it wouldn't pan out, and it did.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And it's just like who's the fool now? Like who's the dummy now? And I remember my middle school teacher telling me like you're never gonna be anything. You know what I mean? I'm like, you think? You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
there we go again. I mean, back to kind of the school of hard knocks. You're
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
figuring out what makes you you, and I like that you said in there. It's my reminder to be a leader.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure.
If it were easy,
Right,
everyone would do it.
right, right.
So the story I wanted to tell you earlier was I got my big break with Akon as well.
Oh shit.
We
That's
uh,
dope.
we we interviewed him like out of the blue, really. I had met his COO because Akon he was doing a lot with Acoin. He's trying to
Yep.
build a cryptocurrency in Africa and an
Hmm.
eco city. And we got our big break, man. We weren't ready. I mean, I had been doing tons of interviews online, going to conferences, trying to get everybody that I could. And then all of a sudden, like Akon showing up in a Maybach with his, whole crew, and I
Mm.
got like two interns and like two small cameras, and we did a 45-minute interview, and now it's crazy, man. He's just global, it's got over a
Oh
couple
yeah,
hundred
yeah,
thousand views, things like
yeah,
that, and
yeah.
and then we did another one with him. So we've done two with Akon now, man, and he's just,
Mm.
I tell people, I'm like, you know the word like swagger,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that's
yeah.
Akon, like
Oh
he's
yeah,
the coolest guy you can ever
yeah,
meet.
yeah. No, he's different. Like every time I see him,
Definitely different.
every time I see him, he got a different wife. He's like, "Yeah, it's my wife number four." I say, "Hold up,
Yeah.
wait." All at the same time. He's like, "Yeah, yeah, this wife number two." I'm like, "Boy, you a bad man."
Yeah.
He got
I'm
four
like, you heard
wives.
that term player? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what Akon
But I
is.
love I love Khan, man, and I also, love the fact
Legend.
that he's unapologetic about how he lives and plays abroad. And I think
Mhm.
that's amazing about him because he'll go abroad, he'll move around the world, like he lives a life.
He's
Um,
smart. Like
yeah,
he's making music because like what he was telling me behind the scenes is like, well, like the Latin American, like American
yep,
music listeners is market like that market's huge. And then you hear him
mm-hmm,
talk about ringtones and like
yep, yep,
how he makes music for ringtone. Like used to make
mm-hmm.
music for ringtones. Now he's making it for a global audience.
Yeah, no, that's
It's
crazy, man. He's very,
smart business guy.
yeah, very smart business guy, man. Love
Let's
Khan.
let's talk about your business kind of
Mm,
mindset and mentality
right.
though a little bit. I mean,
Mm,
you built a couple different businesses. Yeah, you obviously
mm-hmm,
in the business of music.
mm-hmm.
What's been your experience so far with starting and scaling companies now?
Well, my first thing would be I remember being a young kid in the car with my mom when she used to get her checks from cleaning people's houses, and there used to be a liquor store downtown, and it had a shed under it, so you could hang out there. And I just remember being in the car where and it was like pandemonium. It was like just people everywhere, and they would go in this liquor store and cash their checks and give the person who cashed their checks 10%, and then they'll buy whatever they want to buy and they'll sit out and drink. And
Right.
it's like a thing, like on Friday, everybody's there. And I remember just thinking to myself, like, wow, like all these people are sitting here just to drink. Like, how could I make this a business for me? And that was one thing. And then the second thing was growing up in that small trailer, I was just like, if this was it, this would be all we have. Like, I gotta, like, my goal in life
Mm,
has to be to obtain as much land and property as I possibly can. And then when it came to the stock market, I would see it on TV, but I never understood it and why it worked. And I always wanted to learn it. So that was another caveat. And then being a CEO, I aligned that with being a visionary, and that's what I felt like I was because I can see it. Like most people, like even with music, I see music. I don't hear it. Like
mm,
if I'm writing a song in my head, I can see the whole song. I know this how it's gonna start, what's gonna end with the hook, and then if I'm making a play or a business situation, I'm already ahead of what this business deal is because I'm thinking about what we're gonna do on the other side of that because this is gonna lead to lead to that, and it's a bigger goal. So I always consider myself that. So going backwards to forwards, um, I was like, I want to own a spirit brand one day because I feel that much as my mother and my father has spent on this stuff in my community, my culture, how big would it be if I was to be involved in this? Everybody knows that knows me knows that I'm a narco nerd. Like there ain't nothing about the narcos you can't tell me. You know what I'm saying? I was so mad they got El Mayo a couple months, about
right.
6 months ago. He was the last of the dying breed. I was like, oh, they got my guy. But anyway, so I just had this infatuation with Mexico and the way they did things and tequila. So um talking
That's
with
cool.
Nipsey talking with Nipsey Hussle one day.
R.I.P.
Nipsey Hussle's one of the smartest people I knew. He's the first person to tell me about Bitcoin.
Big
And
in
me
the
and Nipsey,
community too, right? I heard.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And me and Nipsey used to trade books. We used to talk about books all the time. You know what I'm
Mm,
saying? And everybody know you come on my house, you getting a book. Whatever I'm reading, you get a copy. And we were just talking, and he was just like, "Yo, what do you know about?" He was talking about equity. He was telling me about it, and I'm just like, "Oh yeah, 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 I know," because I knew what I knew, but I didn't know what he was telling me. And at the same time, I was coming out of this Belvedere like ambassador thing, and,
mm,
and I was coming off of it, and of course they wouldn't let me get into it. And I was going into this meeting with who would be my mentor, my spirit mentor, and which is another thing that helps you having mentors.
mentors.
Um, my spirit mentor, his name is Ken Austin.
Go for it.
And Ken Austin owned NetJets, and he sold it to Warren
Oh,
Buffett
okay.
to buy. He sold it to Warren Buffett, and then he started building Avion Tequila. And I'm going into this meeting with Ken, and I'm coming off the conversation me and Nipsey had, and Ken goes, "Hey, I give you, $1 million to be an ambassador and everything." And I sit back and I go, "I don't think I want to do that no more. I just did it with Belvedere. I build it up. It's my likeness. I'm giving you my whole culture, and all I'm getting is a check. That don't make
Right.
sense."
Hmm.
And he goes, "Well, what do you propose?" I said, "Well, look, when are you planning to sell?" He said, "In 5 years." I said, "What are you missing?" He said, "We need to be at this many cases by that time." I said, "How
Hmm.
about this? How about you give me nothing?" These numbers on the paper, I slide over to him. And I said, "In 5 years, let's talk about that. I want equity. I want this, that, and the third." He looked at me. He said, "Oh, you smart." I said, "Yeah." I said, "You don't have to answer now. Think about it." So he thought about it. He called me back about a month. He said, "You know what? I'm going to do it. I like you. We're going to build even more. This will
Love
be
it.
great." Boom.
Partnership.
Partnership. So I hit the ground running, build it up. Sure enough, 5 years, we sell. One of the biggest paydays I ever got. And I'm sitting here going, holy shit. I'm doing this. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is what I want to do. So come out of that. Then, of course, I do a couple more spirit brands. I do Nod, which is a 5 generation spirit brand distillery out of Cognac, France. So at the time we had gin, vodka, and four renditions of cognac, which was a great deal because I was in it. And then I came back and I did just different things here. Like now I'm about to launch this energy drink that's a mixer. It's crazy. Coming up soon. It's called Edge. It's amazing.
Edge.
Yeah, we coming for Red Bull off the top. It's a wrap.
Oh, let's
You know what I'm
go.
saying? And then when it went to real estate, I just started to buy all these things and I went on tour. Shout out to my real estate partner, Anthony Lacey. He put me on game because he was like, yo, let's buy this, that, and the third. So I was buying these places and I went on tour for Thug Motivation. But when I came back, he called me. He was like, yo, I want you to come see what your properties are worth. And I said, yo, man, we bought them. I know what they're worth. You know what I'm saying? I know what I owe on them too. And he's like, but just come sit down with me. And when he started
Mm,
going over the numbers, I go, what the hell happened? We didn't do anything. He
right.
said, that's what I'm trying to tell you about real estate. So from that point on, every
Smart.
time I got a big check, I took at least 40% of that check and bought real estate.
Hmm.
And so I would just buy real estate, real estate, real estate for my birthday. I would buy real estate. So I built this real estate portfolio because I mean, then I started to notice that I really had an eye for it because I would buy stuff and be like, "Yo, what's this in this building across the street?" I was like, "Can we get this? Because if we get this, then we'll have this whole cul-de-sac, or we have this whole block." And I do, and I know people heard me say it in verses like I own half of Atlanta, maybe not half, maybe more like 35%. But what I'm saying is I own whole streets in Atlanta, like I own whole industrial streets, residential, you name it, buildings, duplexes, all that. And I'm not saying that for bragging rights. I'm saying that if I can do that in my spare
Education.
time, yeah, if I can do that in my spare time, then you can too. But I'm coming from a kid that owned that bought a trailer for his mother for $3,500. Like imagine living in something that's $3,500 total. You
Mm,
know what I'm saying? Not a month for $3,500. And then these business deals I would get in with people that I built these relationships with. It's like we're doing this such and such project, you can get in this for this. These are things I would have never been privy to get in, but I've built relationships with people say, you throw in a couple million, this, that, and the third. So I started doing a lot of those deals. And then when I started to see how the stock market worked, which was another eye opener because I would be on the road and come back and my wealth manager sit me down and be like, yo, so just so you know, this is what we did this year. And I'm going like, hold up, what happened? What changed? He said, the market is up, this, that, and the third. I was like, so you mean to tell me? He's like, yes. So now I'm thinking, all the money I get now, I need to put it into the stock market and I got to set myself up. So it's not based just off of, and I have several more ventures like, my management company, this, that. So it's several more things that go on with the brand of me. But what I've learned with the biggest brand of me is myself
mm.
because now I've been doing work on myself. I'm able to do speaking engagement, fireside chats, New York Times bestseller books. I'm an author now, this, that, and the third. So I've understood how to like do the things that I have a passion and interest in to build my brand and build myself. And that was the biggest thing. But I'm saying all this to go back to what I was saying, the pie
Right.
of not letting nobody box you in, because anything that you're passionate about, it can pay off if you're intentional about it, right?
Right.
And the business part is, how do I relate this to the culture? Because I think a lot of times people just don't know how to get it done. So whatever insight that I can share or wherever I can help people to steer to is the bigger thing for me, because that's the fulfillment. Because nobody wants to talk to somebody that hasn't done it.
Mm.
You
Hmm.
ever see people, the first thing they tell you, my billionaire friend, they can't believe somebody's made that.
Right.
But the thing about it,
Unbelievable.
they're in a billion dollar industry and market. You might not be in that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You might not need all that, but that's why they're able to. So what is your intentions? What is your passion? What would you do? Because I ask people that every time. They like, hey, what keeps you going? I said, well, what would you do if you wasn't getting paid for it? I would do this if I wasn't getting paid for it.
Right.
This is who I am. It's like I can't keep it all to myself. It's live full, die empty. So to me, it's just like the more things I learn, the more things I know about trial and error. Now, have I lost money in business? Absolutely. But I learned. You know what I'm saying? So it doesn't matter. So as I'm doing these things and it's exciting me, I want to share it with people, because it's almost like, do you know that, like, if somebody told me that I was going to write a New York Times bestseller book, I would have been like, you're crazy. But this is my life. I wanted to put it in a book to where it is I can teach life lessons and business strategies and decisions based off of what I learned in my school, because I know a lot of people didn't go to the school that I went to. I didn't get
Right.
to make it to Harvard. I didn't get to make it to Yale. I didn't get to make it to Spelman. I didn't get to make it to, Morehouse or whatever. But I went to a school where the tuition was your life or your freedom. Imagine
Sure.
that. You know what I'm saying? So I learned a
Well,
lot because I'm still here. You know what I'm saying?
someone once told me like a real leader is someone who can build bridges, and that's really resonated with me. And I think that in a sense,
Mm.
like you're doing that for so many
Hmm.
people out there who have come from the school of hard knocks, right?
Well,
And you're able to communicate also in a way that
mm,
resonates with them. Yeah, go for it.
mm. No, I was gonna say, well, and thank you for sharing that. Well, I was gonna say that, true, you connect bridges, but what I think is even greater, and I think what is even greater is that a true leader has to be able to endure pain. I'm talking so much pain, and you have to be able to endure that. And if you're not in pain, you're not a leader. If you're not making decisions that pain you, you're not a leader, because you have to be able to say, this is something I have to do for the greater good,
Right.
right? This is something that I'm going to have to go through for people to understand. You know what
That's
I'm
real.
saying? And yeah, it's real, because I mean, every day you're making decisions that you like, oh, man, I love that person, but what are we going to do? Like, if we go down this road, it's going to, and it's almost like, it's the pain of having to make these decisions. It's the pain of wearing this all on your shoulders, because things happen, things go awry, things get bad. You know what I mean? Things don't always be good. Some seasons are greater than others. Like the wintertime is definitely worse than the summer. But you have to make decisions, and then it hurts you, because you have humility, what I'm saying? You have empathy. You are a person, especially somebody who's been detached from their emotions for, half of his life, that's really coming into the place where I can feel, and I can understand, and I can see the hurt of somebody else, and even the pain that you have to take when you're talking to somebody and knowing that they're in pain. You know what I mean? There's nothing you can really do about it, but tell them you got to push through this, because on the other side of this is freedom. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? But you got to go through it, and it's like you're having to make life decisions. And, any leader any real leader is in pain. They're
Mm.
going through things that you wouldn't understand, because they're thinking for everybody. So that
Mm.
means I'm taking on the stress of you, and you. I got to think about your kids. I got to think about your well-being. I got to think about, I'm going to have enough self-discipline for this, to make sure that I'm not being self-serving.
Hmm.
I got to think about you first. I got to think about the cause first. I got to stay disciplined. I gotta stay prayed up. I gotta stay meditating. I gotta stay journaling. I gotta go out and seek all this knowledge, because I'm going through this, and I can't put that on the fabric of the organization because as the leader, I got to go figure this out.
Right.
And if I have to get rid of somebody, like I like this person, they just are not able to do the job that we need for all of us to sustain and scale. So what are we
Right.
going to do? Or if something happens with the business, I got to go in my pocket and be like, okay, I'm going to have to front this for,
You're taking
and
the risk.
right. It's like, boy, would I love to go to Italy for 6 months, but that Tuscan villa you was going to buy, you got to put it on hold, buddy. You know what I'm saying? But because I'm thinking unselfishly, and I think that's what a real leader is about. You're always in pain, like you're always going through things that people don't understand, and that's why I'll tell anybody, like, take care of yourself first. Take care of your mental, take care of your spiritual, take care of your physical. Like, there's nothing like a morning routine. There's nothing like taking time to like do the things that fuel you and be around the people that recharge you. So when you go into this battlefield, at least you're going into this at the highest level because, you know, at 47 years old, I feel better than I did when I was 20.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I feel like I'm calm, I'm clear, I'm making decisions from a good place. I'm not just thinking about me, I'm thinking about everybody else, including my company, including my business, including my employees, including my coaches, including my kids. You know what I'm saying? Including their future. So it's like I'm not even thinking about me. And it's just like that comes with a lot of pain, is what I'm saying. It comes with a lot of real decisions. It comes with, you know, staying up stressing about things that you got to make a real decision on that could cost everybody their livelihood. And if it does, what are you going to do? Because
Right.
you're leading. You know what I'm saying? It's like being a general and taking your troops into war. One wrong call, you might, everybody could be gone. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, it's the reality of it. Like you think how many people come home for war. Of course, it's not the same, but people come home for war and it's just like they might have won the war, but they lost, 10, 20 people that they had a deep, just an intimate connection with because they was their foxhole buddies. And it was a time that we would never even understand. Well, this person saved your life several times. And now they're gone, and you got to come back home and live this reality, and and you're free, you're alive, and you like, every time you get a minute to yourself, you're like, damn. And I think that sometimes, like every time I get a
Sure.
minute to myself, I think about all the friends that didn't make it. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
And I'll be like, wow, like I wonder what that's like.
well, it makes you think like why so many successful people, including yourself, you mentioned earlier,
Mm,
invest in their personal health, right?
mm,
Invest
mm,
in getting away, going to the cabin, getting isolated, because it is lonely at the top. And
mm,
although enduring pain isn't what a lot of people want to hear, it's
mm-hmm.
the truth. It's the truth. And I'm just really happy that you're also surrounding yourself around other people. I always say, a lot of people don't think there's shortcuts in life, but there are. They're called mentors, right? And if you listen to these
1,000. Woo.
mentors, you can, yeah, you can get to where you want to be faster. And I think that's what you're also trying to do
Mm,
for so many people, especially people listening to this. And
mm-hmm.
so maybe let's, in closing here today, like I'd
Mm,
love to learn like what's next, right? What's next for Jeezy? What's next
mm,
for Jay?
mm. I
What's
told
next for
you,
Mr. Jenkins? What are we thinking now?
I'm thinking, and it's crazy that you say mentors is really like leaning into the fact that I got great relationships, and just figuring out how to bring some of their wisdom, knowledge, and courage into my culture. Right? How do I
Mm,
create a bridge that can draw us all in and be able to go back and forth? As Jeezy Jenkins, the man, um, I want to live my full potential, and my full potential is pouring as much as I can into my culture as far as knowledge, wisdom, understanding, self awareness, integrity, values, morals, because that to me is the space that I want to live in for the next 20 years of my life. And if that's life coaching, if that's mentoring, if that's 10xing, meaning like going out and finding, people that I really want to pour into, that I see a lot of me in them, um, I just want to be a vessel, you know what I'm saying? And because I feel like this, I know how to make money. Like I know how to, get it out the mud, as we say. But I want to leave a legacy that's bigger than anything that I ever dreamed of. And the only way to do that is putting other people in a position to leave that same type of legacy or even better. So for me, that's the space I'm in. I'm in a space of pouring into others, adding value, and continuing to just go against all odds when it comes to being boxed in. You know what I'm saying? It's like, what's better than one New York Times bestseller? Two. You know what I'm saying? What's better than having mentors is being a mentor. You know what I'm saying? What's better than,
Mm-hmm.
like, so I'm on that. And it's like, if I could do anything for free, not saying I have all the clients, like, there's two things that I would do. The first thing is, if I can quit all my businesses and my jobs today, I would go out and be a student for the rest of my life.
Right.
I would just want to learn. That's it.
You're a
Full-time
sponge.
job, learning, because that to me is like fuel in the tank. The second thing that I would say to me that would really like is being someone that can take this book called Strength to Strength. I love this book. And it talks about all the things that you
What's it by?
learn. I forget the author, but it's called Strength to Strength. And it's
Yes.
basically talk about how, when you learn all these things, how do you turn it into a business? And for me, I don't think life coach is the right word, but I've seen situations where people mentor the people that you respect. Like, you see these guys that mentor these millionaires, billionaires, Fortune 500 company people, these leaders, these businessmen, these politicians. It's just like the gift that I think that I have is that I lived in both worlds and I understand it. And going back to the adversity again, is when things happen, I don't panic. Cool. I can see it. I slow it down. So if you tell me your issues and I'm able to slow them down and help you process it because I understand both sides, then that's how I'm adding value. And to me, like that would be my dream. Because I love helping people solve problems. Like that's like my shit. My therapist
Right.
would be like, okay, Jay, slow down. I know you know what you're about to say, but you can't solve your own problems. I'd be like, I think I got it. You know what I'm saying? But I love it. And anybody that knows me knows that if you hang out with me, I'm gonna always ask questions. I'm gonna stay curious, and I'm gonna be the one to say, "Oh, really? Tell me about that." And I'm gonna listen, and I'm gonna just continue to listen. And then when you go, "What do you think?" And I go, okay, you want me to tell you what I think? You want me to tell you the truth, or you want me to just be on your side? You know what I'm saying? But I love that. Like, I love going to see my friends, taking them books. Like, anybody hang out with me, we could be talking about something. I'm sending you a book the next day,
Mm,
or I'm sending you a podcast, or I'm sending you a recommendation, or I'm sending
mm.
you somebody you could talk to about this issue. And it's just like, that's what lights me up. And I think that that's what I want the next 10 years of my life to be about, pouring into people and value, and at the same time for myself, knowing that I'm gonna live full and die empty. Because they say the richest place in the world is a cemetery. A lot of the people take their greatest talents with them. I don't want to be that guy. You know what I'm saying? Yeah,
Absolutely. Well, Jay, like, just again, man, just appreciate you sharing this new chapter in your
for
life, coming
sure.
on the Real Leaders podcast, my friend.
Yes,
Like,
sir.
just beautiful. Like, that's all I
I
can say.
like
It's
I,
just
I like
beautiful.
how I like how you did that. You put me on the podcast. I didn't even know it.
A little
I
sleight of
love it.
hand there.
Yeah, I saw it. No, Kevin, this has been great, man. And I'll definitely tell Con I holler at you, man. And thank you for providing the safe space, just for us to talk candidly, man. I really enjoyed this, brother. You're good at what you do. So if you started off with two small cameras and an intern, you're on your way, buddy.
Appreciate it, Jay. Hey, for Jay Jeezy
What's up?
Jenkins, I'm
And for
Kevin
thank
Edwards asking you to go out there. How about this? Leave a legacy. And
Yes,
always
sir.
keep it real, Jay. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you, brother.